Hello everyone, back at it again. I'm exchanging my chisel for the auger. We've got about 6 inches of ice here, which is plenty for me, but it's not the greatest quality ice if I'm honest. It's about 50% frozen slush and 50% black ice. And we've got a warm-up coming this weekend. It's going to be in the 50s, and I think what's going to happen is that upper layer of frozen slush is going to soften up. The edges are going to soften up both from the temperature and the sun beating down on them. Probably from some runoff too. So I'm out here midweek drilling a bunch of holes along a weed edge, and I'm going to try to get some fish. In case I haven't mentioned it enough lately, that Milwaukee drill with the lower half of a Strike Master 6-inch laser hand auger is just awesome. Flies through the ice, and yeah, it doesn't use too much battery. The old versions, I mean, when I first started doing this, I was one of the few people on the ice with a drill auger combo, and the old drills really couldn't keep up with the amount of ice we had. I still tried to make it work, but this is just so wonderful. Even with that kickback at the end, the new version has a safety feature that prevents that kickback. But even with the kickback, I still love it. If you're not expecting that little kick out at the end, it can really torque your wrists and ligaments and whatnot. So you do have to be careful. The ice is pretty slick too. I've got they're actually Yak Trax. I forget the name. I think it's Yak Trax Pro on my boots. And some people like creepers. Some people like spikes. There's different gizmos and attachments for boots so you don't slip. But I like the Yak Trax Pros. They stay on my boots pretty well. And they allow just a little bit of slippage. It's basically just like metal springs strapped to the bottom soles of your boots. And I don't like it when creepers get stuck in a crack, or when I'm walking, I suddenly get stuck in one place. So the Yak Trax just allow a little bit of slippage, but I don't end up flat on my back or cracking my head on the ice. And that's just what I prefer. But let's go underwater. That's the real interesting part to me. All right, we've got a weed edge. I drilled a bunch of holes trying to get right on the weed edge. And there's fish on that weed edge, but they're being a little fussy. So I've got a black ice Swedish pimple. Oh, I almost had that one. Tipped with a little piece of worm. And he's tasting it. Oh, I'm going to get him then. And it's just a good place to start. And if you can get on active fish, you can catch a bunch of them in no time flat. That last clip happened pretty fast, so I'm going to slow it down. So you got a bluegill coming in towards the black ice Swedish pimple, and a crappie comes in over his head. I'm trying to lift him, and he goes for it, and the bluegill just kind of slides back down. Well, one thing I wanted to stick in right here is I noticed I was missing a few fish that I really shouldn't miss, and I took a look at the hook on the Swedish pimple, and it was bent, and it wasn't all that sharp. So I tried to bend it back and sharpen it, but I still wasn't getting the hookup that I really thought I should. So I upgraded to this Gamakatsu size 10 open eye sea wash. It slides right onto the split ring because it's an open eye design. You just have to crimp it down and you're good to go. So crimp it down with a pair of pliers and you're good to go. All right, back to the fish. So what I'm doing before I see fish on the screen is I'm jigging pretty aggressively. I'm trying to call those fish in. And then once they show up, if there's only one or two, normally I slow down. I'm being a little bit too aggressive still. And that fish peeled off. But when there's multiples, like 2, 3, 4, 5, they usually get more competitive with each other. And I can get one that comes in a little bit high, or comes in a little bit faster, and he'll kind of push his way through the others and eat that worm at the end of the Swedish pimple. These fish are being a little bit fussy. It's kind of towards midday. Sun's pretty high. And they're kind of eyeballing the spoon, but they're not really eating it. And so there's a couple of different things you can do now. You can switch to a different spoon, maybe a different color. You can switch holes and try to find more active fish. Or you can go all the way down to like a little tiny tungsten jig, something like that. You can change the bait you're tipping your spoon with. Here he comes. He's coming up. He's thinking about it. He's getting a good look. A lot of times they do this. They come in real tight and they just stare at it. Try to decide if it looks like something that's good to eat. And that one hesitated. I'm giving him a couple shakes. Got another one coming in. But we've got a bunch of lookers. And yeah, they're just giving me a hard time right now. Towards dusk, and again in the morning, early in the morning, you can fish with bigger lures. You can be more aggressive, and the fish usually just come in and smash it. But midday, they slow down, and they can be really fussy. They can be frustrating. So what I did before is I switched holes. You can see there's different weeds down this hole. I was trying to, just change my location and get on more aggressive fish. I know you can just see the nose of that fish in the video, but he was right there looking at it, and he kind of pulled away. So now what I'm going to do is switch to a little tiny 1/32 ounce VMC tungsten Mongo jig. It's the same as the tubby jig, it just has a little bit bigger hook for its size. And I like that little bit bigger hook. It has a little bit more of a gap, and I can put a little bit more bait on there. Again, I just tipped it with a piece of worm, but you could use spikes or maggots. You could use a little piece of mealworm, wax worms, whatever you like. I've used all kinds of stuff before. I've even used squid from the supermarket. And I'm getting a little bit better reaction here. I ended up catching that one. You can see the camera swinging around. I was just running out of space above the weeds to keep lifting him. I almost lifted him right into the camera. Oh, I almost had that one. Yeah, so just by downsizing, I've got 2-pound test on this rod, and switching to a little tiny 1/32 ounce jig. I'm putting fish on the ice now. I'm converting those fish that were just looking into fish that are eating. And that's a little bit different fish. I think that's a crappie. I can't quite tell right now. He's thinking about it. No, that's a bluegill. I know there's a crappie in here somewhere, though. Got another bluegill coming up to it. Still a little fussy, but I'm giving him my best stuff, and oh, that one took the worm right off the hook. Now, usually without any bait on it, they just come in and look at it. Maybe give it a big sniff, and then slowly sink away. But that one I almost had. He did bite it. I think I was just a little bit too slow. But usually without bait, it's real tough to catch them on a little tiny tungsten jig. You need either a little piece of plastic or some kind of bait. This is a different view. I'm fishing in deeper water, so typically what I'm doing at this particular pond is I'm trying to set up either in the weeds or right on the weed line. And every once in a while I miss and I end up in deeper water. And this is what deeper water looks like. It looks cloudy for the most part. You know, every pond's a little bit different, but generally deeper water will look cloudier. And in the places where there's good weed growth, the weeds seem to act like a filter and help clear out the water. It's hard to see them. They look almost like ghosts on camera, but there's one coming up towards that spoon. It's a little bit later on now, and I've switched to a bigger spoon. That's a 1/16 ounce leech flutter spoon. I'm trying to get a bigger bite now. It's around 4 o'clock, and usually around this time I can switch back to bigger lures and try to get a bigger bite. And I ended up catching one of those. I don't remember which one, but one of those bluegill came in and ate it just below the camera. Oh, there's the crappie. He comes in fast and hits it. Came in fast from the side. Let's look at that again in slow motion. So I'm jigging it. I'm up high over the weeds. I should have that camera up just a little bit more. But he sees that bait and he just puts on the afterburners and he's on it. That's really how you want him to come in and eat. Just come in hot, fins up, come in fast and high, and usually they eat it like that. Versus this bluegill, this is actually a pretty decent bluegill. He's staring at that bait, staring at it. And this is what he looked like on the ice. He's about 9 inches. He was flopping around a little bit. He didn't quite line up with the measurements on my Jiffy Chipper Dipper, but somewhere in that range. Nice bluegill, but not a giant. We got some more bluegill coming in. The leech flutter spoon is just a little bit big for them. They also make like a micro leech flutter spoon, but it's so light I think it tends to spin more and twist more, and I don't love that. This next clip is kind of interesting. I've got a bluegill coming in, sliding in slowly. He's a little bit hard to see, but he's sliding up towards that leech flutter spoon, and another one comes in. They're competitive with each other, and he wants to take that spoon out of the other one's mouth. Now it's getting a little bit darker. I'm losing light here, and it makes the video just a little bit more grainy. But I've got a bluegill in the bottom right corner. He's looking at my spoon. He's thinking about it. Sometimes when the sun gets a little bit low, it kind of dips below the tree line. They start getting fussy again. And so at this time you could switch. You could certainly switch baits. You can switch holes. You can downsize. But I like to just stay with the bigger stuff. I've usually by this point I've already caught plenty of fish, and I'm trying to catch bigger fish now, right until dark or whenever it is I leave. And if they don't want to go on this, I'm hoping that another fish, a bigger fish, slides in from the side and eats that bigger profile, that more aggressive spoon. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This one is kind of sliding away. Maybe I can get him to come back, or maybe a buddy comes in and eats that spoon. Oh, I almost had his buddy. I saw a pair of lips on the bottom part of the screen there. Oh, I did get him in the end. Yeah, their mood changes throughout the day, and with the camera it's pretty easy to see and adjust. With a fish finder or flasher or something like that, you don't get as much detail and information. They're still both excellent tools, but I really like the camera. Got another bluegill. He's nipping at the tail of the worm. See, the leech flutter spoon really does flutter on the way down. Kind of calls fish in. It has some vibration. It has some flash, and it's just a bigger overall profile than a little Swedish pimple. And so I feel like between those 3 lures I've shown today, it's a good 1, 2, 3 punch, and you can kind of adjust depending on kind of fish you want to catch and the activity of the fish and how they're reacting to your lure. Tiny tungsten jig probably is a better way to go here, but I'm still going to pick away at them. Yeah, and this was just towards the end of the day. And I didn't even have a lure down. This is just what's going on below the ice. It's almost like, watching an aquarium or something. If I'd known there was a fish down there, I might have put a lure down instead of drilling more holes or whatever it was I was doing. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you all for watching. Really appreciate it. I'll put all the gear in the video description, all the lures, tackle, etc. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!